5 years ago, I was almost obese and addicted to junk food. I found myself unable to resist the temptation of donuts, cakes, and pizzas. But one day, I accidentally discovered this superpower that makes me totally uninterested in junk food. You might think this is about willpower, but it isn't. It's actually something you're probably already doing, just not in the way that helps your cravings. I call it tolerance, and it has totally changed my life. This superpower has helped me get into the best physical shape of my life and continues to make me totally uninterested in the ultra-processed foods that I used to be addicted to. So how do we get this superpower? Because I know that we'd all love to have the ability to resist the temptations of junk food. In order to understand how this works, you need to understand just how deep the hole was that I had to climb out of. I used to drop whatever I was doing, whether it was work, spending time with the children or family, just so I could go out and indulge. And nothing seemed to be able to stop that feeling that came over me, that wave of want and need. When out shopping, the lure of junk food would often get to me, and I'd buy things that I didn't go in for. I'd never allow myself to have these types of food in the house, and I always had to go out for them specifically. Because the more cake there was to eat, the more I would eat. I seemed incapable of making it last over a few days. But now with this superpower, I'm able to walk around and not really be tempted by any of it at all. I say really because occasionally I will slip up, and I will also tell you the best way to avoid slip-ups as well, and this works for me almost every time. Tolerance is our ability to deal with difficult situations or to deal with something unpleasant or annoying. And in order to get this power, this is what I did. I started moving more. I'm not talking about eating less and moving more. That chestnut is just total nonsense anyway, and it doesn't work. It isn't reliable, but this is. I realized that by pushing my body physically, my brain stopped screaming out for sugar. I'd inadvertently raised my threshold for discomfort. I do go to the gym, but you absolutely do not have to go to the gym at all or do any sort of crazy exercise to get this power. This applies to people who work out like crazy at the gym or don't move around much at all. On days when I'm sitting down all day and don't move much, I find myself really lethargic, bored, and I get tempted to eat all sorts of things that I shouldn't be. But on the days where my step count is higher, where I've moved more and done some extra housework, got some exercise, I don't get those same temptations. When I joined the gym last year, I started building up my ability to tolerate heavier weight, to run faster and for longer. I'd eat my cake at the same time as always, but then after having built up my tolerance at the gym, I found myself eating the cake, not because I wanted it, because it was just always what I'd done at that certain time of day. I realized I was eating for the sake of it, and that pang, that feeling of want and need, had actually gone completely. I noticed this more and more on the days I was more active. There was no temptation. I could resist the temptations of junk, but whenever I stopped moving around for a few days, the temptation returned. If you aren't that active, just increasing your step count a little every week is building tolerance. Perhaps you hold the handrail to get up the stairs. Try going up the stairs without holding onto it, and take those steps 2 at a time if you can. Doing a little bit more cleaning. Any small changes you can make that enable you to move just that little bit more each week, and then build it up over time, is building your tolerance. You can start small and gradually build up. All of our routines are different, but all of that extra movement really works. Tolerance isn't an on-off switch, it's a scale. And the higher you go up on that scale you go, the more you can tolerate those temptations. And at the gym, it's the difference between just being comfortable every time you go, or pushing yourself to lift that little bit more, to do a couple more extra reps, or to run for those few extra seconds. And in the real world, it could be the difference between walking 5,000 or 6,000 steps in a day, increasing your walking speed a little bit, or taking the stairs instead of the lift. As long as you aren't just staying the same as always, you're building tolerance. Now I find it takes me between 1 and 2 weeks to build up this threshold. That's the time it took me to go from driving for 45 minutes to buy a cake to realizing that I don't actually want that cake at all. And during those first few days, things can feel a bit hard, but they do get easier, literally, as each hour passes. And trust me, one day there'll be a moment where you think about, or you know it's the time where you usually eat your thing, and that pang, that feeling you usually get, it won't happen. It'll be gone. Now I've slipped up many times. No one's perfect. But there are certain things I did that I felt kept me on track. In the past, where I've messed up trying to eat better, I've told myself, right, that's it, game over, I'll be unhealthy now for the rest of my life and I'll never be healthy and I'll just go get some cake. That's happened more than once. And each time it did, it took me a while, sometimes months, to get back on track again because I just felt like a failure and I gave up. But now I use these simple methods in order to stay on course. The 10-minute rule. Sometimes life happens and you want something, anything. It happens to me and I tell myself, wait 10 minutes and see how you feel. The chances are things would have cooled down and I find that temptation has gone away. And the more you've built up your tolerance, the easier it is to not be tempted. Never miss twice. Breaking a habit once is to be expected, but doing it twice can lead to those bad habits creeping back into your routine before you know it. So if you do slip up, try not to do it again the next day and the day after. I find now that when I do slip up, it's not because of temptation or that pang I used to get or used to have in my brain, it's more because of circumstances. Family gatherings, being out in the real world where things are just out of my control. I've been to cafes with my family where I've had no choice but to eat a meal that I don't want to because it was the only thing available. Sometimes I have to take a step back and pinch myself because if that's a slip up now, it's a far cry from those slip ups that I used to have before I built up my tolerance. Now before I talk about putting all this into practice, I've got one favour to ask. I'm just getting started on my YouTube journey, and if you've made it this far and like what you've heard and want more of the same, I'd be really grateful if you could like the video and hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much. What is that one thing that has the most power over you right now? Is it in your kitchen cupboard? Name it down below in the comments and commit to building the tolerance to walk past it. I'll be with you on the journey and I'll respond to as many of you as I can. By ensuring your home environment is clean of temptations, it makes it harder for you to get that thing that you actually really want. It can also really help to mix up your routine a bit. Like I touched on already, I found myself sometimes buying cake not because I wanted it, but because it's just what I always did at that certain time of day. This is really common, but by planning in some sort of busy time for an hour at the time you'd normally be indulging, you can allow that time to pass and continue to build up your tolerance. And if you do find yourself not wanting it, but just eating it because it's habit, that's a great sign you're heading in the right direction because you've taken away those pangs of temptation and you're just left with breaking a habit. When you do go out to do your food shopping, go with the list and stick to it. Allow your powers to increase. And one of the best moments can be simply walking out of a shop with absolutely nothing at all, or with just what you had on your list. The most incredible part of this for me wasn't just losing weight or saving all the money I used to spend, it was the mental space I got back. When you're no longer a slave to those pangs or waves of wanting, you start to realise how much of your brain was being occupied by junk food. You're not just reclaiming your health, you're reclaiming your agency.